Hello, my name is Robin Perry, and my senior IS project is about analyzing how liberal opinion elites choose to argue about abortion at the state level. Specifically, I ask if public health arguments are beginning to make a resurgence in states like Ohio and Kentucky that have passed increasingly restrictive abortion legislation. I like to start with some background before I go into my study. Historically speaking, abortion before Roe v. Wade was always considered to be a public health issue. In the 1800s, the original abortion bans were about saving lives, and abortion was widely practiced and legal under England's common law. Antiseptic methods were not developed until 1867, so until then, abortion, like all surgeries, was a highly risky procedure. Surgical abortions were made illegal in many U.S. states, the main goal being that less assigned female at birth, or AFAB women, would die from the surgical procedures. Why then, if in the past the discussion around abortion was about keeping AFAB women safe and healthy, has the discourse changed to a choice and privacy rights issue? This is because of the ruling that the court made in the case Roe v. Wade. While Roe v. Wade does reference widely used public health arguments, specifically that abortion bans were originally enacted by states to protect the lives of AFAB women, the court concluded it was now more dangerous to continue to make abortions illegal. This is because modern medicine by 1973 had developed surgical methods that made abortion safe. But the court then added in a reference to Griswold v. Connecticut. Griswold had ruled that married couples could have access to birth control because they had a fundamental right to privacy from the government in decisions about their marriage and family. The court in Roe concluded that based on Griswold, AFAB women had a fundamental right to privacy in their decision to have an abortion. This is when the shift to rights arguments happened. Vincent Vessera did a national-level study of abortion rhetoric pre- and post-Roe and found that before Roe, the most common arguments were public health. But after the Roe decision, liberal activists armed themselves with rights arguments while public health argument use declined. At the same time, activists were changing their arguments, states were pushing back against abortion legalization. Gerald Rosenberg studied the court's ability to enact change in America and questioned why states would push back. He believes the court was unable to just get blanket acceptance because the court made a ruling based on the assumption of gender neutrality in a society that is built upon a hierarchy of sex differences. It's the fact that AFAB women, because of their assigned gender, are placed at a lower level in the power structure that the court was constrained in its ability to maintain meaningful change. This leads then to my study. If Vincent Vessera is right that the Supreme Court had the power to change public rhetoric, and Rosenberg is right that the court was constrained by states from making the change it intended in the Roe decision, how do state-level liberal opinion elites respond to state-enacted restrictions in a post-Roe world? Specifically, I ask, how do they respond when states pass restrictions that the Supreme Court did not allow in the Planned Parenthood v. Casey decision? Casey made an outline for states of which kinds of restrictions they could impose. Ohio and Kentucky have both passed 20-week bans, which are not allowable under Casey. Will liberal opinion elites return to public health arguments as abortion becomes more restricted? I hypothesize that when abortion access becomes more restricted in a state over time, there will be an increase in the use of public health arguments by liberal opinion elites. The independent variable was access to abortion, and the dependent variable was public health arguments. For my population, I use editorial and opinion articles from Ohio and Kentucky newspapers. I did have some trouble collecting these articles just because of the way the search engine I used worked. I had to sift, oftentimes, through all available articles on abortion to find the articles I was looking for. For this purpose, I designed a coding sheet to rule out any articles that were not editorials, or pro-life, or were neutral articles. The articles were split into a pre- and post time frame, using 2017 as a splitting point. I chose 2017 because this is when both states passed a 20-week abortion ban. My pre-time frame was the years 1998 to 2016, and my post was 2017 to 2020. I looked for an increase in the use of public health arguments in the post versus the pre-time frame, but I did not expect for there to be any change in the use of rights arguments. After I collected all those articles, I performed a qualitative and quantitative analysis. For my quantitative analysis, I performed a t-test, which shows that public health arguments continue to decrease in use over time, while rights arguments maintain the same level of use. This shows that my hypothesis was false. My qualitative analysis did have some interesting results, though. I found that when public health arguments are used, they are often used as supplemental arguments to rights arguments. I also found that after the 20-week ban was announced, but not yet passed, there were editorials published all making the same argument. These articles were arguing against the 20-week ban using public health argument that AFAB women would die as a result of this bill if they need a medically necessary abortion. Many were AFAB women telling their personal stories of medically necessary abortions. One notable part of this observation is that these articles arguing against this bill were written by both self-proclaimed pro-choice and pro-life activists. In such a divisive issue, it is notable when there is such a specific argument like this that brings people together. In conclusion, the Supreme Court continues to have a sustained impact on the rhetoric of liberal opinion elites, since my study shows their articles continue to mirror the language used in Roe even after highly restrictive abortion legislation like the 20-week ban is passed. My qualitative analysis, though, does leave the question of if it is truly the right line of argument to use. Public health arguments can be far less divisive. I think most people would agree an AFAB woman shouldn't die from a pregnancy, abortion, or have to carry a dead fetus to term like many of the liberal opinion elites who use public health arguments argued. If public health arguments can bring both sides together to resolve this issue, maybe the continued use of rights arguments is only a hindrance to the liberal opinion elites' cause.